Okay, good morning, everyone. We are on the record. Please silence your cell phones like I just did. Uh, Today is Tuesday, the 6th day of June, the year 2023. This is a budget hearing for the Department of Public Safety with the Jersey City Municipal Council. We had a scheduled 10 a.m. start. The clock on my cell phone is showing 10:12 a.m. I have a roll call for the commencement of this budget hearing. Councilperson Prinzary, Councilperson Baggiano, Councilperson Saleh,
Here.
Councilperson Solomon, and Council President Waterman.
Here.
So we have 5 council members present in attendance at 10:12 a.m. In addition, at its time of its preparation, the notice of this meeting was similarly disseminated on Friday, May 26, 2023 at 3:10 p.m. And a reminder was sent out on Friday, June 2nd at 4:33 p.m. to the mayor, municipal council, business administrator, corporation council, and local newspapers, so I can certify as to our total compliance with the Sunshine Law. So today we have the chairperson is not here, so I'm going to turn it over to Council President Waterman.
Good morning. Let's just start out by introducing ourselves for the record, and then after that, you can just start the presentation. Just let us know what department or division you'll start with first, as after everybody introduce themselves.
Luana Moody, Director of Police.
Carmen Gandula, Director of Finance.
Jim Shea, Director of Public Safety.
Kyle Greaves, Budget Office.
Bill O'Donnell, Department of Public Safety.
Okay,
Just let us know what division you'll start from with your presentation, and we'll follow.
Good morning, Council President, council members. If it's with your permission, we were planning to start ourselves and our colleagues with the Division of Police, the biggest one.
Whatever,
Okay.
it's your choice.
Yes.
Okay. We're gonna start with line number 200. Is that the one we're gonna start with there, Kyle? Kyle? We're gonna do from 200 because I know you have the.
I think you should just go through the presentation, and if they have questions on the budget, I'll answer.
Okay. Okay. It's the presentation, and we have the overall division. You want us to read all the way through them? That's fine. Police Director of Public Safety, I have the Chief Office. The Office of Police handles all police-related department matters, including services provided by traffic enforcement, school traffic guards, the police fiscal department, the firearms department, and the record room. Traffic safety assists in various of crossing guards throughout Jersey City is not limited to crossing guards, but includes parades and festivals. Police fiscal responsible for the budget, as well as various of fiscal duties related to payroll, pension, etc., including both sworn and civilian. Fire department is the firearms department responsible for all firearms permits for the city of Jersey City. The record room is responsible for all of the reports and all the police. We have for the adopted budget that we had for 2012 was 108,265,170. Then we introduced or we requested 119,677. We have on staffing for full-time employees for the sworn, we have 929 in a year of 2012. We had 160 crossing guards, and then we had 65 employees full-times as civilian. For 2023, we have 60 civilian, 155 on crossing guards, and 923 on sworn. Some of our key incentives we had was increasing the professional development for our sworn police officers, such as active shooters, hostage training, bridging the gap between the community and our police department through our constant communications, and annual activities like our Rock the Blocks, the senior event, promoting within the commitment to consider current employees for promotion opportunities, hiring from within or promoting from within. Constant working to decrease crime across the city with our fixed posts, which, just so that I add there, we only have on evenings, no longer on days or midnights, to increase presence citywide. Increasing our sworn supervision positions to include additional detectives, sergeants, lieutenants, just to help eliminate out of title. Our key incentive accomplished was the grand opening to our new public safety building. We now offer the one-stop shop where all constituents just come to the headquarters, obtain the parking permits, the police report, inspections, to avoid, the constituents having to go all over, different locations. Just a note there, on Thursday nights, we are open until 7 p.m. Committed conference rooms, like the bigger rooms conference, so that we can use for the community, emergency events that we can have here, and all necessity to maintain the community during all our events. Achieve goals, I just went through that one, which is the communication, meaning the public safety building, communication policing through our annual community events. Constant professional development for sworn and civilian, because we make sure they stay trained. Promoting within for the traffic guards to become parking enforcers or traffic enforcers. Increasing the CCTV cameras citywide helps to curb some of the crime and to protect some of the constituents that don't want to come forward. Goals is to proactively train for the sworn officers, our Tomahawk with training, incident response, increase school safety, crossing guard staffing for staff for the children throughout the city, and helping within congestion during the rush hour. Increasing traffic enforcement staff, which provides safety for constituents, and we don't say, so we can have revenue there, but we don't have to use sworn officers. To implement crossing guard training civilian staff to help better opportunities to grow within the department, and a better serving constituents coming to our new public safety building. And of course, our mounting unit, we're looking forward to trying to get that up and running in the area of Jersey City. Now we're at the budget line items. And we requested 115,611,508. Just a quick question, Council President. The ones that we have increased, do you want me to elaborate or go through the whole thing first?
Yeah, what you requested? Why?
Which one?
Yeah, just go over and then I know the council will actually.
Gotcha. Okay, fair enough. We asked for the 115 million there, and our salary for part-timers, that particular line can explain a little bit better, because these was our part-timers to some of our traffic guards, but we don't have too many part-timers anymore. Our overtime number, which I know is $13 million, but I got it, whatever I'm given, I have to work with. The uniforms, that's contractual, I have to do that one, that's 1.12, 1.2. We have, what other one, holiday pay, which they just spoke to me about. The retirement, we don't ask for. Line 201, I'm gonna drop down to that one, which is our office supplies. We requested the $90,000 for office supplies. For photographic supplies, we asked for $5,000. For line 205 for fuel. For food, those are for when we have active shooters events, we pay for that. So we got to pay the trainers as well as the community that comes in to participate. The fuel is for the boats that we use when they have them, whether it's for emergency events, 4th of July in the water, but we have to maintain them. It helped a little bit there because Director Cares did help us with some. Line 212, we asked for $20,000 because that's the increase. That's where we have the events for the Rock the Blocks and the senior events. We asked line 214, that's our regular chemical stuff we have to get for BCI. I asked for $1,000 there. Wearing apparel, so now all of our public safety employees wear uniforms. So that's at our one-stop shop. So that consists of the record room, the off-duty, everyone wears uniform there. Just need to know, because we used to carry the ones for crossing guards, so that a question he'll handle. Police supplies, that is for all our ammunition, that's for all our trainings, all of that. We cannot change that out because we don't have our own academy, so that's a part of the cost in there. The rent is actually goes inside with North Arlington and the ones where our guys have to qualify for the range until we get a range. Line 306, we asked for $25,000. Our training is $275,000 we asked for. Mileage was $500. The 309 is food and events. That goes as a part of the block parties and the senior events. 310 is for all of our maintenance contracts that we have. And 312, that's our consultant fees that we have. And the last one is the mounting unit for when the horses come. Line 403 is for vehicles because we're in dire need of vehicles. So that was for our marked vehicles as well as our unmarked that we have. And that was just some of the justifications for the back end.
All right, questions? Go ahead.
I think the issue that we have is, or not we, I'm going to speak for myself. The issue I have is the overtime budget. You have, it says 923 employees. And then are those all officers or?
The 900 and something is officers. Those are sworn.
Council President, just to be clear, they're sworn officers, designated police officers by the state of New Jersey. It does include supervisors that are also police officers, such as sergeants, lieutenants, captains.
I just feel as though we have, great that we have that many officers. Love that for the city. I just can't wrap my head around the 13 million in overtime. And I just think that I know that there are certain situations that might necessitate overtime. If you get an arrest at the end of your shift, you know, and then you have to process it, and then you got to maybe escort someone to a hospital, all these different exigent circumstances. But I just, I feel as though there needs to be better controls, and 13 million is absurd for the number of officers that we have. I mean, is there a reason for it? Like, it just seems like there's no guardrails.
Yeah, not sure I'd agree. There's no guardrails. The overtime in the police falls into several different categories. The first one you pretty accurately described, everyday jobs that go past the end of tour that require officers to stay on the scene of an accident with an injured person. It pretty much exactly what you said. That's the first one. Court, having to go to court for an arrest, for a domestic violence arrest, etc. That's getting more complicated. We're doing a better job in policing throughout the country, but it's becoming harder. 30 years ago, an average job might have one piece of paper. Now a domestic violence job might have 20 pieces of paper that have to be filled out, compared against databases, checked, et cetera, et cetera. That's a small part. Events was another huge part. I know the council and the mayor have made a decision to not use overtime for events, to use off-duty. So that should come down this year as we see that happen. But really, it's the second half of the year that we're experimenting with that for. And we're getting a lot of community pushback, but so far we're staying firm and doing it like that. And then we have, before I get there, we have the requirements for training to go to the academy. We no longer have a range. That's nobody's fault. PSE&G just, for many years, the people before us let PSE&G donate on their property for a range, and nobody ever said, well, what happens if they change their mind one day and take it back, which is exactly what happened to all of us.
Yeah.
So we're now building a range and de-escalation center, but that's a two-year project. We're hoping for it to be done by the end of this year. In the meantime, we have to pay outside agencies to send our people twice a year to a required range training, emergency service 4 times a year because they carry different weapons. That's all Attorney General guidelines. There's nothing we can do about it. And we have to pay our people overtime to go to these different locales and use their range to qualify. And then finally, we have what we're coming into now. We had our anti-violence initiatives where we kept people permanently on our most dangerous locations. We have pulled back from that. You all know. I just don't want, like, I prefer that the bad guys don't know until. But we have pulled back from that. We should see savings from that by the end of the year. However, we have also seen, right now we're holding firm, but I had hoped for more of a decline this year. We were on a pretty downslope with our shootings and homicides, and instead we're pretty much exactly where we were last year.
Do we pay a double rate for overtime? Like, is it double whatever there's?
Time and a half, right? Time and a half.
Time and a half, is that, okay?
Yeah, that's the stand. There is no change on the rate. Doesn't matter whether it's Sunday, midnight. It's just that's controlled, of course, by the federal laws. Time and a half over 40 hours or over 8 hours and 8.5 hours in a day has to be time and a half. So that's the final part. And we're going to see how we do now coming through the summer, because now is when we have the disorderly groups and everything also throughout the summer. And that's usually when you all and us start getting the phone calls and the texts and the emails from people demanding police officers to address the conditions on their block. So we're looking to do it without the overtime, and we'll see where it takes us and see how the community grades us,
Is there
you know, on the job we do.
So is there, I mean, because it's the budget, is there a plan, like a real plan? It sounds like there are parts of a plan. Is there a plan to bring the overtime down over time, or is it like gonna keep going up and up?
Well, we have two parts to the plan. The first is to eliminate anything that we were doing on our own initiatives, such as the anti-violence programs, anything like that that could be, it's not absolutely necessary. It's not required training and it's not keeping people. We have eliminated, and we're going to see where we go, where we go with that. And then the second part of the plan is the increased supervision over the officers to try to minimize that required overtime, like Director Moody combined arrest processing at one location so that it should flow faster than having to go to 2 different places. So we should see a decline from that also. So those are the 2 big pillars of the overtime, attempting to reduce the overtime, trying to cut down that required overtime through better supervision and through whatever we can do structurally, like combining places so you only go to 1 location instead of 2, and pulling back on all of the overtime that was initiative driven, which was the initiatives we all wanted, cutting the violence, et cetera. But if we can't afford it, we can't afford it.
And is it true we have 24 deputy chiefs, and do we really need that much?
Separate from the overtime question, but
Yeah,
absolutely.
I just,
One of the
related.
things, two, not misnomers, I think a lot of you understand. One, deputy chiefs are cheaper than captains because they leave the contractual uniformed ranks union and they become management employees. So Director Moody can move them at will without having to pay overtime if they're moved from one shift to another, without having to guarantee them a shift at the beginning of the year. So they're actually more cost effective for us.
okay.
And the same 24 if they were captains. The other thing, do we need them? It depends what we want to do. Do we want to stay off do we want to continue what we've been? We've kind of been a model for policing through New Jersey and the country. We went through the George Floyd demonstrations and made it into the Times and the Wall Street Journal. How come everyone else can't handle it like Jersey City is doing?
Mhm.
The increased supervision is what keeps our people, which allows us to keep doing the very aggressive policing we're doing in some areas, trying to cut the violence, trying to protect people from, with the community policing that we're doing with our community policing flow that we're doing generally, and getting people to respond immediately, to investigate potential uses of force immediately, to institute de-escalation immediately, to institute internal affairs procedures immediately if something is seen, if something is seen inappropriately. So I'm comfortable with what we're doing and the results we're getting. Someone else might answer differently. Director Moody, I'll say.
Let me ask you a question for the firearms. You said when they go for the training, I guess go for firearms, a requirement. It's a requirement for firearms, right? So they have to go to the range twice a year? Now, let me ask you something. Since you have all these managers, that's what I'm gonna call them because they're police officers. Why is it necessary we have to pay the regular police officers to go for that type of training? Why can't the managers, all these managers cover them as they go? The only reason why I'm saying this is because even when I look at as the city as a whole, anytime any department has like a conference or something, a lot of the employees go during that time. They're pay time, like we don't pay them overtime to go. So I'm just trying to say, why can't we do that for those who have to be are required to go for, the training or update on a firearm training? Why can't the managers, all these managers we hired, cover them that day while they go to the firearm training, which is on their pay time? This way here, we won't have to pay them overtime.
Yeah, two parts to your question, I think. Yeah, I hope I didn't give the wrong impression that this training, this is individual, each individual officer
Right.
required. Okay.
Right.
We do send them on straight time as much as we can,
Uh-huh.
but every now and then we have to maintain a minimum presence in the districts to answer emergency runs and to be able to protect people if something happens.
Uh-huh.
So if there is a conflict between when we can get the ranges, don't forget, we don't have a range.
Right.
This problem should end at the end of this year when we have our own range.
Uh-huh.
But right now we get whatever dates the outside range gives us. And if that means we have to pay people overtime to go on those dates, we have to, because we have to qualify them. If they say you can come Monday, but you can't have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because we need Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Uh-huh.
Well, then we have Monday. So it's a bad situation. No one here did it. We got stuck into the middle of it, and we're managing it as best we can. We try to send people on straight time. That still incurs overtime because the training is required to be an 8-hour day. So
Right.
we have to pay them for the travel time on both ends and overtime. But every now and then we have to pay overtime to get people out there because we must get them qualified, or else we have to remove their weapons and decertify them.
Yeah, I understand that. Go ahead. You want to say?
Director, didn't they change the law saying that they have to qualify once a year?
Councilman Borgiano, you must not be on.
Oh, didn't they change the law saying that active duty cops only have to on? Oh, okay.
We did the same thing, Dawson.
Yeah. They changed the law that active duty cops only have to qualify once a year?
Sir, during probably you remember during COVID, he gave that 1-year waiver and said they can only qualify once this year. But he's already rescinded that, the Attorney General, and insists he wants us back on the twice-a-year schedule. And it's the Attorney General guidelines are the guidelines. That was we had to send everybody twice last year. So everybody in New Jersey's back on the twice-a-year requirement.
And finance, I know with the other departments that are coming, where are they at with their overtime? Are they over it already or what?
Well, year to date, they're projected to spend about $10.2 million,
Uh-huh.
which is less than their ask, which is great. But as you know, if we've gone through other departments, there were cuts across the board
Right.
where they're trending slightly over, and we're going to continue to monitor that. So we're not in a position like we were in the last few years
Uh-huh.
where we overexpend. But I would say from the finance perspective, our responsibility was to introduce a
Right.
balanced budget. They have to ask what they think is sufficient for their needs. And I think collectively we need to determine what the appropriate appropriation is going to be this year, because if we do treat public safety like we treat other departments, we are going to cut their overtime from last year, which would potentially result in another over expenditure, but we don't want to do that. So I think we need to be clear on what the council wants to see from police, and if there is a need to increase what we've introduced, we'll we'll entertain that to avoid any issues year end, but we'd like to stick to the
We would like
8.5
to
million.
stick to it because
Yeah.
we are,
But we understand there's conflicting,
right.
8.5. So citywide, there was a 15% cut for
Right.
all overtime.
Just want to make sure. So you said the police overtime is 8.5?
The introduced number, yes. So we cut 15% from the adopted budgets from last year.
I think we like at
Yeah,
8 if you.
So
yeah.
just that's not what's in the,
Right.
so I'd seen the 8.5 number in a different sheet, but in the presentation, it's
Correct.
13.
Right.
That's their request. So
It's their request. It's not what finance present.
Okay. And where, just want to make sure I'm just looking and getting the numbers accurate. The numbers that you guys produced, where do I find that versus their sheet right
I
here?
did share that with the council on Friday.
Is it, so it's in one of your emails, Kyle?
Yeah, so
Yes.
similar to every other department, the introduced figures are there side by side to the request. That's in Director Moody's presentation.
Was that forwarded by Sean to us?
Yes.
Okay, I'll look for it.
Friday, because Friday you send a couple.
Okay. Well, let me look and then,
So a question, so also to knowing that a number of our departments have cut by 15%, but we see that you guys are, asking for 10 million more this year over last year, if I'm reading this correctly.
I mean,
And I just want to, and I know that you're talking about increasing crossing guards and increasing parking authority and the like, but if you can just kind of walk us through why that increase or what your targeted goal numbers are.
yeah, we're increasing 99% of our, I'm not just throwing a number, but 99% of our costs are personnel costs. If I have the most expensive employees in the city, we didn't do that. I didn't do that. We've had during this council, council president and Councilman Bogiano have been here from the beginning. They know we've had very reasonable settlements with our police, with our employees. But we started out with very highly, they're very highly paid, our police officers and our firefighters. Every year they cost more. They get a 2% increase or a 2.5%. I think it's 2% this year, which is well below inflation and everything else. And it costs 10, that'll us by 10 million. So if you see the police and fire through the year, we're almost always up that 10 million or 5 million, 8 million because of personnel costs. That's what it is. We've cut back everywhere else that we can. And that when we talk about the overtime costs too, it's important to remember that too, that our base for overtime is more expensive than everybody else's because our employees make more, for better or worse. Our police and firefighters and supervisors make more money. Fire, they're in the union and eligible for overtime up to deputy chief, right? All the way up to deputy chief. It's not like police. Deputy chiefs make almost 200,000 now. You start making overtime really quick when you have a fire late and you're paying someone overtime on a salary like that. But that's all state controlled civil service law that we are all stuck with.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I have a load of issues with the police department, and I'm not going to discuss them out here because we're on live TV. But I want to sit down with you, Director, the mayor, and sit down maybe with a couple other council people and go over the issues. Because I speak to the police, I know what's going on, and there's a lot of, the morale is horrible. And I think it's time we sat down and we started talking about things, and I don't.
Councilman, I'm available at your pleasure.
I brought it up.
You and the mayor set that up, or any other council member.
I brought it up several times and it seems like just being ignored. But certain issues have to be solved and, I'm not going after you, Director. You're a fellow Marine, so I'm not going to attack you. But
I've always got that going for me if I lose.
If nothing else, right?
And I have another question about the mounted unit. What is the likelihood of that happening this year? I know we've been talking about it year over year and you guys have budgeted
We can't,
every year, but
we don't want to give up on it, which is why we include it here. It's not going to happen this year. It probably won't happen. Two, we're having trouble, one, finding a location. Every time we find what we think would be a location for a stable, it gets needed for something more important. And I'm not being facetious there. It actually gets needed for something more important, to be done. So we're still working on that. That's a wish list. We think it'd be hugely helpful in controlling, especially the crowds downtown. It's what we call passive control. People see it and tend to behave better because they see officers, they see the presence. So you don't need to use, again, it ties into what we want, which is voluntary compliance from the people we work for so that we don't have to have negative interactions with them. But realistically, we don't want to give up on it. We think the city of Jersey City needs it eventually, but it's not going to happen this year or next year because we're still very early in planning stages and we can't find a location yet.
Anyone
I
else?
was gonna,
Go ahead.
I see that, one of the successes was the public safety building that was recently built and we had the grand opening. I know the North District is getting a new North District, East, West. What about the South? Like what's going on?
You want to answer?
Property there?
No. So you're correct with the north, the east there, but I know, you know how you do the 5-year plan and putting it in the capital for there, the south was in there. Maybe about 2 years ago, we have gotten no feedback on when that's available for us to look for that.
Feedback from who? Sorry.
It's from. So we could. Was available in West.
I thought that the issue with the South was the location,
That's-
not the funding for.
That's tied in. I mean, nobody's going to do the funding until we have a location. And I mean, it's pretty packed, pretty packed down there and nobody can find a location that everybody can agree on apparently for us to at least think about it. So you're right. We're not going to do the funding or start paying architects until we know where it's going to go.
Are you still putting the East District in Hoboken?
No, sir.
It's going down to 16th Street? That's Hoboken. They're very happy about it.
That's not where the phone calls come from for me. Part of the new Ward D, Rich.
No, if you guys want to update, he sent it out on Friday that, this Friday, he sent it, a whole list of,
So I'm going to
information
raise a
with the
question because
different-
Councilman Bogiano has not. And as we're moving towards like a Vision Zero goals and more dedicated traffic units, because it's a big problem across the city with enforcement. I know that you don't like the conversation about the motorcycle unit, but I'm going to raise it again anyway, because I will tell you, you cannot get a car down West Side Avenue when we're having problems, when it's I've offered to drive down there with you someday, but I really think that finding a way through for this is going to be helpful with a lot of our traffic enforcement issues. And I'm not a police officer, so again, but from in my experience in other cities, that's been the experience.
Councilperson, you've been good about bringing things to our thing. And when you do, we check on, it's always pretty much exactly as you described. So you don't have to be a police officer to see, to see what's going on out there and stuff like that. Lieutenant Ragland, we took the traffic, we combined all of our units that affect traffic. Director Moody combined them all under Lieutenant Ragland, who's our traffic expert in the city. He now has responsibility for where school crossing guards go, for moving traffic around. Let's see how he does. And he is a proud former motorcycle cop.
So I'll have some
So
conversations.
let's say,
Ragland.
please,
Okay.
please don't overly
For next
influence him,
year,
but
okay,
let's
we'll
be,
have, as the overtime comes down, we can put in for traffic units.
yeah, and they're
Direct-
expensive, those,
Director,
maybe we can look, maybe we'll see, but let's see how Travis does with the traffic. You've all seen how wonderful he handles it when there's like emergencies, and the kind of construction. I trust him. I think Director Moody trusts him, and let's see what recommendations he makes.
He's been
once he's
very,
been there.
very good for that. We've had some major
he's,
traffic issues along 440 with closure, so he has been very good for that.
yeah, he's very good, but however, nothing has been changed in this city. The parking authority, the crossing guards, 911 are all shorthanded. I don't want to get into all this. I'd rather do it personally and sit down with you and the mayor. But there's a lot of things going on that have to be corrected.
We are shorthanded. There's a hiring freeze. We are shorthanded in certain areas, but we're functioning and we think we're keeping people, we think we're keeping our people safe.
Do we give out speeding tickets anymore? It happens so much and I don't see any.
So Councilman, I can talk with you about what we did when we had problems on the boulevard, but not to answer for these guys, but the answer is yes, but you have to, we can talk about that offline about what things that have been successful on the west side.
Can I ask two
Hey.
questions? One is, you apologize if I missed this explanation, but could you, I think it's more for the budget office, but it looks like the holiday and compensation time is going to special emergency notes.
Mhm.
Can you just explain a little more detail what's happening there?
Right, so we're gonna include that in our year-end financing for accrued time payouts,
Okay,
and it'll be a deferred charge over next 5 budget years. We do have some, I believe 2017 or 2016 deferred charges coming off the budget next year. So we have some wiggle room there to kind of keep that appropriation flat. And this was just a mechanism to alleviate the budget impact this year.
and how much are we intending to defer?
So typically about 10 million we do for civilians, and this year we're going to include public safety. So depending on, we have to check at the end of the year, but typically doesn't fluctuate beyond $12 million.
Sure. I guess I meant specifically how much holiday and compensation time are we deferring?
Whatever we pay out by the end of the year. So their ask was 1.6 in police,
Okay.
and there was another ask in fire for 3 million. So it's 4.6 million over 5 years.
Okay. And then,
Again, we don't definitively know what the cost is until it's
Sure.
paid out.
and we're allowed to do that the same way we handle accumulated absences?
Right.
Okay.
We haven't done it in years past because the appropriation had already been allocated in
Right.
prior budgets, but now trying to,
Yeah,
limit the tax impact, this was just a mechanism that we're looking to use.
I understand. And then again, directors, I apologize if I missed this too, but correct if I'm wrong, I don't see funding for any new cadets or classes. Is that right?
It's up in the salary and cost. You see where the salary and wages, that top line, that's why it's up to the 115.
In the directors,
101.
101, yes, see,
101.
yes,
So if you see the high jump in there, it's because we didn't have recruits going this year.
right.
And then we just put a class that's going in, which is 40. We normally budget for 120 because of budget reasons. We had to cut back. So hopefully this year coming, that's why the axe is there,
Yeah.
so that we can see if we can put some classes in. Because and I'm glad you asked the question, because if we can get more recruits, right, then it does help, not just with, a lot of folks are retiring, but it can help with some of the overtime when people have to go and qualify, where you can cover some of that cost. But that's why the number is high, because we're putting it in for our academies.
So the council's aware, they did provide that request for, I think it was 100 something recruits. And the expectation is that obviously the 100 won't be paid out for the full year as some drop out or whatever the case may be. We'd be able to cover those lower wages with any of the vacancies that result in the police officers, captains, lieutenants, sergeants. As those employees leave and are backfilled at lower salaries, we'll have funding there to cover the academy wages.
So it's not directly line item, but you're anticipating that you'll have the money in the salary and wage line?
Right.
And right now, in this calendar year, we have a class of 40, is that right?
We'd like a class of 40, we'd like the 120.
Sure.
but We'd like a class of 40 that the business administrator has not made his final decision yet.
Okay.
We, of course, will,
So right now we haven't had any new cadets and you have a class of 40 waiting approval for the
we
business.
hope we can put in a class of 40 that if we get the breakage you're talking about.
Sure. Got it. Okay. And right now, just, I think this was Councilman Salay's question, but just to confirm, right now we have 920 uniformed officers. Got it. Okay. And then we tend to know retirements towards July 1st, right?
Yes.
Got it.
Minutes ago.
Right.
They know they have 60 days.
Sure. Got it. Okay.
You're saying we have 920 officers, or does that include the civilians that work in the department?
No, sir, those are sworn positions.
Go ahead.
Sure. And then, this is a police question and just understanding we have a new acting chief. Can you sort of describe the interaction between acting chief, police director, and how that works?
Sure. So we've been working without a police chief for the last 2 years. We think the police director, we know, did a great job, and
Yep.
we're perfectly comfortable moving on with that.
Yep.
We had several issues with internal affairs that we asked the police director to clean up, with some other issues, some other things that were happening. She did a great job. It does cause us some difficulties dealing with prosecutorial units, with outside units, not having a chief based because of the Attorney General guidelines in the state of New Jersey. We're perfectly comfortable dealing without a chief and just handling those issues. But we decided, based on the performance of the department and our supervisors, that we would kind of dip our toe back in. And we would appoint an acting police chief, or allow the director to appoint an acting police chief reporting directly to her, and see if those old issues that we didn't like raise their ugly head again, or if we continue progressing in the area we want of a progressive police department, community oriented, et cetera, et cetera. So we chose Deputy Chief Kearns, lifelong resident of Greenville.
Yep.
And we're going to see how it goes. He's in an acting capacity because if those issues that caused us to not have a chief begin to tick back up, then we can say we tried and it didn't work, and we'll return to the way we were doing it.
Got it. And so the acting chief reports to the police director. That's right. Got it. And how long does the acting last? Is it, I don't know if it's statutory, is it 90 days?
That's up to us. No, there's nothing statutory.
Got it. Got it. Okay. And then this is more of a legal question. A lot of departments not here, but ultimately is the police chief something that the council ends up voting on if there's a formal appointment?
I believe so.
Mhm.
I'm not 100%, but right,
Yeah.
Council President? Yeah, I think
We
we
have to
did have
vote
a
on
vote
the
on the
chief. We
pre.
have
Did we vote on Kelly? or that might have been before. I
Yes, we did.
council.
Yeah, I think for the fire chief is civil service, police chief is at your pleasure. So I think you do
Okay.
vote. You and the mayor proposes and you vote.
All right. Thank you.
Does he appoints, but then it comes before the council. Every director position is in our package. You don't think so?
I don't want to debate it.
No, I know.
I know that the
director came
depart-
before us.
So the department directors are definitely recommended by the mayor and approved by the municipal council. But I don't believe the police chief or fire chief are approved by the municipal council.
Fire chief, definitely not, because that's a civil service test.
Right.
Police chief, I don't recall. I thought you did. I don't remember.
I think that's right from the mayor, direct appointment.
Even if it's a direct appointment, he puts it always before the council. Let us know that. I remember Kelly, we had.
I'll double check the last time that it was the last police chief that we had,
I see what happened.
Mike Kelly was the last.
Mike Kelly. I'm going to double check our records. I don't believe that the council had anything to do with the approval, but I'll double check that.
I think he was just curious anyway. I mean, we can check if it
Yeah.
comes up. Thank you. Council President, are you ready for fire?
Okay, so the Division of Fire, the budget comparison for last year, 78 million last year, going up to our request is 83 million this year. Personnel wise, we are slightly above where we were last year, but we do have pending retirements that is probably going to bring us lower than last year. Next page is a very basic table of organization. We have three bureaus under the fire chief, who reports to the public safety director. Your operations, training, and fire prevention are three aspects of fire. Some initiatives last year, a lot of these, Chief McGill got us up to an ISO class rating, which is very big for the city and the residents. Next page, we can go through the lines. The salaries increased slightly. That's all contractual salary step increases. In there, we have requested a class of 20 firefighters for this year because like I had mentioned previously, we're going to dip below our SAFER grant number of 667 firefighter minimum. So if we dip below that number, we risk losing that SAFER grant, which does bring us in some funding for the firefighters. Kyle can probably, he can jump in on that exact dollar amount, but I believe it's close to 6 million, if I'm not sure, Kyle.
That's what we had accumulated over the last few budget years.
Okay, so that we requested a class of 20. Right now, we have 6 pending retirements for July. A couple more may be anticipated towards the end of the year. So the overtime line is overtime. We've had several major fires this year so far. Unfortunately, thankfully, no one seriously hurt, but that does require us to recall members in and hold guys over. So we asked to increase that a little bit. The acting costs, we have no change in the acting costs. The holiday pay, Kyle had just mentioned, that's very similar to the police with the holiday, the vacation and comp time buyback all comes out of that line 106. And that's just basically because of the increase in salaries. The increase in the salaries, that rises the amount that they can cash out. All of the other lines, for the most part, I won't go through them one by one, but all of those we requested minimal increases, basically just because of the rise in prices. Everything that we have purchased, equipment-wise, office supplies, fuel, everything has increased in price from last year. In line 316 on the next page is our leasing costs. We have no change right now in our leasing costs. We are going to look to purchase or lease new rigs in the near future because we have some that are well beyond their lifespan. And that's pretty much it. The next 2 pages are the Uniform Fire Safety Act, which is required by law to have a budget for. That's for our fire inspectors. It's all of that cost is subsidized by the violations and the penalties. So that budget is just set up by law. So that's $250,000 that pays for the salaries and the overtime and all of the operating costs for our fire prevention. And that's at the end of the year, that's journalized and it's all recuperated through the fines and penalties. And then the OSHA account is our wearing apparel. We requested 1.5, no change in last year, and that's just the replacement of the gear, which is contractual. Yes.
Any questions?
Sorry, just to apologize, just to confirm. So what's the number we have to have for the SAFER grant?
667 is the minimum.
667.
Yes.
And sorry, where are we now today?
We are at 671 right now. So we're
71.
just above that number. Once we hit July 1st, we're going to be below that number.
And how does
We
this
already have 6 confirmed retirements.
How does the SAFER grant work in the sense that if you drop below, what happens at that point?
So as long as we show that we have a class that's currently being trained, they have worked with us in the past and gave us a little leverage with that.
Got it.
We have to show that we have a class in the academy.
And is it Department of Homeland Security that manages SAFER or? Sorry, is it Department of Homeland Security that manages the SAFER grant or?
You know what? I'm not sure if that's that's a federal grant. So it could be Homeland Security.
Right.
Kyle, do you know the answer to that one?
Or we'll follow up with the grant office.
Positive. it
And
is,
then,
but-
and then you said we have a class, either we do have it moving forward or is it still waiting to be approved, this class of 20?
It's budgeted in this number.
It is,
So it's
okay.
it's pending your approval.
Got it. Okay.
People have already been selected and all of that, or Not yet. Okay.
Councilman, it's important, the federal government, this is the one
Yeah.
place they're very good with us. Like
Right.
during COVID, when it was.
They work with you, yep.
To do classes, they understood. As long as we can show them, as Billy said, as long as we can show them we have a plan that we know we're going to correct it, they have always been good in the past. They've never threatened to yank,
Yeah.
to yank the funding or anything. They want to see that you're committed to the
Right.
number that they're paying for.
Is there another test coming out or it's that's,
The new list just came out. Right now, it's good until next year.
Okay.
But that's in civil services hands, whether they extend that or not. But we have a fresh list that just came out.
And how many Jersey City folks are on the list? Do you know?
We don't have access to the list. They don't, civil service does not provide us with the full list.
Interesting.
So I can't answer that. That's a question for them.
I would just want to note too that the fire budget doesn't depend on these funds right now. We budgeted for the staff without any grant offsets. So in the event that we do receive the SAFER grant as anticipated, it would just be, surplus at the end of the year for us if we choose to use it.
Is, when you see the disparity in the overtime, fire and police, completely different jobs.
Mhm.
Fire is manning trucks, working as a team. Some of you who've been with me for the years know that we have incredibly dropped that number, both through hiring to get to the safety thing, making sure we have enough employees, and controlling contractually the amount of time off people used to be able to take. It took us a couple contracts to get there, but we're there now where we're confident that we're doing the right thing by the fire department, hiring enough people so that they can work and have a good, fresh working environment, and that we're not being abused
Mhm.
by people taking time off excessively. And pretty much all the money we spend, as Billy said, last year we had a good year because we didn't have too many major fires. We've already had a couple major ones this year.
No, this year you have a lot, I know.
Yeah.
This
So
year is.
anything you see there means there was that's responding to a major fire or the calls at the end of tour. Like if an alarm goes off at the end of tour, we can't say, oh, we'll wait until the next time. We have where you send someone out immediately. So it's minimal, but we do need what we have there.
Questions?
we've been doing more fire safety inspections, like what, are those numbers steady, given the fact that there's been an increase in fires? Like, do we know if they're due to electric vehicles or what's the?
No, we haven't had any, knock on
Data.
wood, we haven't had any problems with the electric vehicles yet. It's just, there's no direct correlation to the inspections to our fires. It's either electrical or the one was an outside rubbish fire that caught to the building. It's,
The heights,
you know,
Done a good job. Everybody probably remembers because you all supported it. Chief McGill's initiative to get rid of those cheap things, and we
Yeah.
actually gave them to people, replaced them. That helped us last year, cut down when we expected fires. We suspect, not the electric vehicles, but these electric bicycles.
Mm-hmm.
We suspect those in a couple of our fires because New York is telling us those batteries are disproportionate in their
Right.
fires. So we have the exact same building environment. So
Yeah.
we're keeping an eye on those, our inspectors are trying to warn people in bicycle storage rooms and stuff that an electric bike is not a bike. Yeah, don't leave them plugged in, but we haven't, as Billy said, we're watching, but we don't have a correlation yet.
okay, thank you.
Anybody want to talk about communications? Billy?
which one, Council President?
Communications, next. Technology.
Is communications this sheet? This,
Yeah, not as well.
Oh, I'm looking on. Hey, Rich.
Okay,
That's it.
so,
That's it. You got it.
communications, we have to go to page. Because Director Baker gave us every employee at the same time. So we got to go to the fourth page. And there you'll see the line items. This is 2023. So Yeah, you went ahead. Billy understands it better than me. I'll jump in.
So most of the salary and wage line increases, obviously, vacancies. That's,
Yellow is the vacancies, that's why he.
yes, yes.
I see.
You have, well, the yellow is a created vacancy. At the bottom, the end of that list is all the already vacant positions that we haven't filled. So the request in the budget was for 5.7, which is an increase of 800,000 from last year. Like I said, it's all salary costs, and that's for
Okay.
vacancies. Yeah. The overtime line, everything looks the same as last year. There's no increases on those lines. Again, the operating expenses, a lot of these costs increased because of the price increases. Computer products, the prices went up incredible. Your wearing apparel line, data processing line, communications, which is our radios for both portable radios, vehicle radios. The training line, mileage reimbursement is for, we have a gentleman that goes and marks out where our fiber lines are prior to these companies digging to avoid those replacement costs in the future. So he's contractually required to use his own vehicle, and he gets reimbursed those miles. Maintenance and repair, professional consulting, contractual services. The contractual services is the combination of the CAD systems. Police and fire previously used to be on separate CAD systems. We've consolidated that into one CAD system now through a new company. And that's all the costs there for that contractual services.
Why haven't people been hired in 911?
It's a very high turnover rate, Councilman. You know that as.
I know it's a high turnover. I got people calling me saying they applied for the job. They never hear nothing. They call City Hall. They get no responses back and nobody gets back to them.
Yeah, that's a question for HR, but we process everyone that we can for that because.
Why aren't they hiring them? People are saying that nobody
It's true.
calls them back between the parking authority, calls. Oh, the thing is on.
Yeah, it's on.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm getting calls constantly, people complaining. They say that the parking authority, the police department, the 911, they applied for the jobs. They don't hear nothing. They call City Hall. Nobody gets back to them. It's a shame what's going on.
I'm not disputing what you're saying, Councilman, but again, that's not at our level. That's.
HR.
Yeah, that's it.
Is there a HR liaison within the police department, or not police, sorry, public safety department? Is there someone that works with them? Is there?
Yeah, we meet with them, all the time. We give them our requests. We talk to the attorneys there because there's legal aspects on some of the jobs we give. You have to pass background checks, and everything else. So yeah, we work closely with them. But as far as people calling and, applying and not being notified about it, if that's happening, we'd have to talk to the the intermediate group there, if that's occurring.
What's the issue with the telecoms folks? They say they're not being paid properly. Do we have any resolution on that? They say they're supposed to get paid like the police and fire are supposed to be paid, and in terms of 3 days on, I forgot how many days off, but.
Again, I don't want to keep
Yes.
saying HR, but I know there is a working group of attorneys at HR that's dealing with all of these. I believe the last I heard, they thought that some of the employee complaints were legitimate. There was an actual mistake in the computer system as for how they worked, and others were not, where something that was caught that shouldn't have been happening. But I do know there is a group, I believe Chanel Robinson, Jimmy, a couple other people that are actively meeting and working with them to try to work all that out.
Okay. And I know we approved the study.
IXP study.
When can we expect to find out the results?
We have a meeting because that dragged on a little bit. They went on to other things. They weren't immediately available for us. So now Tawana just told me she has a meeting on the 20th. The initial meeting, they're coming up here and We should get an initial report hopefully and see what follow-up we need to do. So we'll be meeting with them on the 20th and we can report to you immediately following.
They be like in the telecoms area to see what's going on, or
They've already been there, right? Yeah, they've already been there, but we'll have to go back. They'll have to go back because that would be stale. I'm pretty sure anything they picked up would be stale by now.
I also know that we're working on a 311 center. We have a non-emergency number. We have resident response. Like, do we need all of these different systems? Like, is there a way to merge them all? And
Yeah, we're working on a plan now, and you're aware of it, to merge all of our non-emergency systems because the big impetus for this was when we had the flooding and people were calling all kinds of, like if they just typed in City of Jersey City in Google, there were like 10 different phone numbers that came back, most of which were closed at that time of night or were bouncing from one thing to another. So we are putting together, and you've seen, I hope, the room in the new public safety building. We plan to have a non-emergency 311 center. We can't use the number 311. It's been trademarked, but we're going to have a non-emergency number in, we're going to have it manned 24/7. And we're going to slowly but surely shut down those other functions and combine it all there with caseworkers and follow-up afterwards. And it's going to be co-located with the 911. So if somebody calls it by mistake with an emergency, it can be immediately crossed over. With that, we also plan to make that the city's operations center so that we record everything that's happening through the 24 hours in the city. We really needed one. We should have one where like you or the mayor or somebody could wake up in the morning, call one number and say, hey, is anything going on right now? Are there festivals going on? Is there a water main break? Instead of having to call 20 or, different people or different departments. So all of that, hopefully, we're moving on it. I'd like it to be done probably by September. Would be my goal.
Where would that leave RRC? I'm just trying to.
So the RRC is going to stay functioning because we need walk-in places for people who don't want to call, who'd rather talk to a human being. So what we do is keep those functions so people could walk in and just have it like take those people and then they would call it into this same thing so that it all gets tracked in one place. No matter how you make the complaint, it would get tracked. So if you call in, it goes right to 311, what I call 311. If you still want to walk in, we'll still have that at both locations for you also, so that you can walk in and make a complaint, and then they would enter it into the system so we could track it. But our goal is to get it to a place where, let's say, Council President, you're a citizen, you make a complaint. We want you to be able to track your own complaint.
Correct.
We want you to be able to see, I made it on this date, it was accepted on this date, and here's what's happened since, here's what's happened since then. Because let's say you're complaining about a fire hazard. I'll use Billy's example from before. You should be able to say, I think my neighbor is creating a fire hazard. You should be able to then the next day look in, see it was accepted, see at 8 that morning, the fire inspectors were sent out. They haven't reported back yet. That's our goal, to create that kind of a system.
So this would be an addition to SeeClickFix because we already
Right.
do have that system, or is that system going away? I mean, and we're getting into
Gotcha.
process here, so we can have a separate conversation.
I'm not
about it,
involved in
but-
SeeClickFix. That'd be a separate conversation.
Okay.
Once I have my non-emergency, I get the majority of non-emergency calls, so I plan to get this up for mine, for resident response which is under Jake and
Right.
everything else. So I plan to get this up for mine. And if it's working and it works well and we can add other things to it, that would be a decision above me, above me.
I also raised a question because we had SeeClickFix and then we had the WhatsApp and then the WhatsApp went down and then it came back up for parking and people have to like toggle between two different apps to put that information forward. Then it's also could be redundancy, right? So I think that as we're talking about exploring these different ways of communicating complaints to the city, it should make sure that it's interagency, so you guys can talk about these things and figure out what needs to stay, what
Right.
needs to go, because that will eventually affect the budget later on down the line.
It will affect the
Yeah.
Like
budget.
the WhatsApp is incredibly cheap and incredibly effective. Problem being, we didn't pay our bills. We didn't pay them, so they shut us down. I mean, that's what happened. Now we're back up and we lost a very effective thing that our citizens loved because again, they could track their complaint, which is what our citizens want. When I talk to them, more than anything, they get frustrated when they don't know what happened when they make a complaint. So anytime we can make it visible to them and give them that transparency, solves not, at least on my,
So this would be, my neighbor is having a party, it's 1 a.m, I call non-emergency, and I would be able to track that. say,
that's the,
say
thing, it
do
would
the
go right
work.
into a system
Okay.
that you would have visibility to.
Okay.
So no law, so if the person on the other end, I'll tell you, and some of you, me and Council Solomon had this one time downtown. Like, let's say the non-emergency operator just hangs up and is a bad employee and doesn't do anything. You'd not know that. Because you'd be able to look and say, no, nobody put my complaint, nobody put my
Right.
complaint into the system. I just spoke to them and it's not in the system yet. So yeah, that's where we're going.
Okay.
Okay, we're going that way, but did we fund it that way? Is that in the budget? It seemed like this is a new system altogether.
But no, it's piggybacks off of pretty much existing systems, like we've been improving with
Uh-huh.
all of you with the cameras and the fiber optics and stuff.
Yeah.
We've got capacity to do all of this.
It already exists. I just want finance to let me know, this is, already exists. This is nothing added to the budget. This,
Right.
he's just explaining the process to us.
Yeah.
That's all.
Right.
Is that true? Do I got it right?
Correct.
Okay, because I want to say now, this seems like this is a whole new system here. Is this in the budget or what?
Build it and then ask. We were planning on building it and then asking. We did it. No, that was just a joke. No.
I know,
yeah,
I know.
This is utilizing existing people, trying to use them through technology
Right,
more efficiently.
gotcha. Okay, all right, we good. Any more questions on this one? Okay, let's go to quality.
Quality of life is.
I did have one more.
Oh, I'm
I was just-
sorry, go ahead.
I think the thing I'm just similar to the conversation with police earlier, just looking at the numbers here. I think we budgeted less in OT for communications, and it looks like it's trending over based on the reports, Kyle, that we sent out. So I think it's 850K is the OT budget. And if current projections stay the same, it's going to overexpend by 350K more than budgeted. So I did want to kind of flag that. And I know obviously we're having trouble getting manpower in communications, but I did want to ask, what our current plan is related to kind of communications OT.
Yes, so similar to every department we monitor, and hopefully, end of the year, we'll have enough funding in our full-time line item to cover the overtime wages, because that's typically what triggers it, is the lack of telecommunicators on staff. And in theory, that funding that we have for vacancies should cover any potential over expenditure and overtime. But if there is a slight trend where that may not cover it, we'll have to come back with an amendment. Again, we'll continue to monitor and notify departments. And I believe they still have weekend rates that.
Yeah, and council, but like,
Hmm.
again, this is kind of why we wanted to do this study with the IXP people
Right.
is like, I'm going to make an analogy to the fire department. When we inherited the fire department and their contractual rules, one of that overtime was
Right.
through the roof, like 3-4 million, where it's now 400,000. What we discovered was that it was really people taking off and contractually obligations to give them off. And we were just replacing people. So hiring people wouldn't have helped because 4 people take off today. Well, I hire another. Now 5 people take off. You still have to replace it on overtime. That's kind of the situation we're concerned that we're in communications right now. That just hiring people will not solve the problem because we have an attendance issue, we have an absenteeism issue,
Okay.
we have all kinds. So what we want is a look like, if we hire this many people, do we need to change the rules? Do we need to change the contracts?
Mhm.
Which is what we had to do with fire. And it took us,
Right, wow.
that's collective bargaining. We had to wait a while to do it. We got half in the first time, we got the rest of what we wanted the second. So we want like a roadmap like that before we just say, oh, if we hire, like before we try to tell Kyle, oh, if you just let me hire 30 people, the problem will be solved. I'm not sure that's true. And we want to know what the answer is before we ask them to make expenditures.
Police have a similar setup because the communications folks are always comparing themselves to the, police. Do the police, are they allowed to like take off and then just then whoever fills in is getting OT or is?
No, what we won with the police, they used to be able to. The rules when I inherited the department, the rule was contractual. If someone wanted off and someone else was willing to work overtime for them, I had to give them off. Through various arbitrations, and that's why we went to arbitration. It had a pretty ugly scene, for But through that arbitration and through the following negotiations, we have changed that to the point where now minimum manning, which is determined by us, once we're at minimum manning, we only have to give another 2 people off. And that's fair because we looked at the manpower and said, okay, the people going sick, vacations, it's hard not to go to below. But then we can stop and say no more voluntary taking days off. And we do. Now, communications, the problem is we don't have the same controls over them because they are not uniformed, not sworn. The bottom line is they can generate their own overtime a lot easier there. They can take off, accept an unpaid day, and knowing someone else is going to come in on overtime. And then, not saying this is happening, but it's structurally possible for then they reverse the next week and somebody takes the unpaid day off. And this is, again, why we want to do a full study. It's like kind of like it's come to a head. We want to do it. The laws have changed. The laws have granted more time off with the Military and Extended Leave Act and everything else. It's impossible for us to put any type of controls in. They like to compare themselves to other people, but since we have to man it 24/7, they're not like other people. If Director Kearse's arborist uses up all his time off and says, I'm going to take Friday off, we can tell him, okay, and you won't get paid. And he can only do that so much before he can't pay his bills. So it's self-correcting.
Yeah.
When we have this requirement for 24/7 where they know if they take off, they can generate overtime for each other, theoretically, structurally, it's a little harder to control, which is why we really want to put a roadmap in and decide what we need to do going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Live life.
Okay, yeah, quality of life. Prosecutor Hudnut gave us a very detailed breakdown here of everything. So on the first part there, step 1 are the lines where he requested increases: 201, 204, 212, 306, and 305. Step 2 is lines that he reduced to offset those costs. And his only 3 new requests are 2 of them are for vehicles. One for his staff and the other one for his inspector vehicles. And his third request was for Surface Pro tablets to make his prosecutors, because they're still doing virtual court, so they have more disability to go on those Zoom court hearings. And
Did IT put in a purchase order recently for like the whole city, or did they not get looped in on this?
I believe public safety manages their own inventory of hardware.
Okay,
So Director Baker
Got it.
sees that for IT, for public safety.
thank you, sir.
So
Hmm.
we all, right, obviously Prosecutor Hudnut has a hybrid unit here. He's got prosecutions and he's got quality of life enforcement.
Right.
We combined it under him so we'd have a steady flow and more accountability for the people that were taking advantage, like letting things fall between the cracks, bad landlords, people abusing things. And he's done a very good job there. He really has. He takes it very serious and he loves the law. He loves the prosecution. He loves Jersey City. So we laugh about him because he's very precise and knows exactly what he wants. But he's an asset. As far as the cars and the tablets, we're working on trying to get those within our existing budget right now. The tablets, again, would be Director Baker would have to see if he can get them with the other competition that he has for other people in the public safety.
Director, I have to disagree with you 100%.
Yes, sir.
This belongs back under the DPW. I have summonses issued in Journal Square. Nothing's ever getting done. There's a lot of issues there. And another thing we should sit down and
To
discuss.
be fair, and I will sit down with you, Councilman, you know that, but to be fair, some of that problem is a lax attitude in the courts towards some of these offenses. Like we issue the summonses and once people realize that there's no real repercussions at the back end of the
Correct.
summons, it's a problem. It can become a problem. I mean, you know what it's like. We stop people sometimes and they walk into court with a handful of summonses and they know they're going to negotiate it down. So That's, I think his prosecutors do a good job. They flag most importantly for us, they flag our serious offenders, like I said, those bad landlords, people like that, and they make sure that they are not considered the same as just a homeowner who made a minor mistake, on the thing. So we're pretty happy with it. But again, I have no problem meeting with you and addressing your concerns.
So, I mean, maybe this is a better question again that may be directed back to HR, but I see in some of the vacancies, there are no overnight or weekend supervisors for inspectors.
Yeah.
And maybe this, I can talk directly with the prosecutor about that, but, well, that's what they're saying. They don't have any. And most of the offenses tend to take place at night and on weekends, and in particular with our trash company. So has there been any conversation with moving one of the day supervisors into the night or weekend just to sort of manage or offset that till they can hire more supervisors?
Yeah, I don't think he thinks he can effectively move one of the day to the night, where aspirationally we'd like a dedicated night, night supervisor. So that's one of the.
That's a great aspiration, but in the meantime, we get a lot of complaints about this, and we need to know that there are inspectors out there.
Okay, we do have inspectors. I'll get back to him on your concern.
I would
Thanks.
say, at least for the weekdays, Lopez, I see him out there. He's a safety inspector. He follows the trucks. He has the supervisor for regional, at least whoever's doing the heights. And he will talk to them if there's spillage. I don't know what the other safety inspectors are doing, but it is a good model. Whatever he's been doing, he helps out with the trash. He takes out the trash can for regional. Like he goes above and beyond, and it's done wonders for Central Avenue and across the heights. And if you could take that, and I know Joe Barrow's doing a fantastic job with that, if they could just emulate that across the city, that would be,
Thank you for those comments, Councilman.
absolutely. I give
Right.
credit where credit's due, and he goes, both of them been going above and beyond, and they do anytime at night or day. I text them, but I do agree to Councilwoman Mira Prinzari's point. When I've driven around at night in other parts of the city, it's not as organized.
And I think it's wonderful that there's star employees in the Heights, but we need to
Right.
make sure that the star employees are across the entire city. And if we only have one in the Heights, I would respectfully request that maybe we share.
That's,
You call Ray Myers on the weekend and he says, call the police department. And one of the things the police department should do, for construction going on and stuff like that. And one of the things is the cops that are now being taught out of the city, not with a police academy here in Jersey City, which Billy, was a great academy. They should we gotta start telling them how to enforce the laws on weekends when they
Right.
get a call, because evidently it's non-existent. And I'm tired of it. I live in Journal Square, which is being destroyed with all this construction. And you call and nothing is done.
and part of the challenge is, I don't know if, Jake should have received our message by now, because we did meet with the municipal court, is that when they do write fines, a lot of them are just being dismissed, which is creating a behavior in the community, because now neighbors are calling on neighbors, and neighbors are out there, arguing with one another, because some neighbors feel like, they don't have to abide by the law. I get it, you're trying to be lenient, but what that is creating a culture now where it's really hard. And neighbors are definitely calling us, and you don't want nothing serious to happen. But I think if we could just enforce the law, if they break the law, then they have to pay. That's just the truth. I'm sorry, but that's true, because we created a culture now that some neighbors are constantly being fined, and they just know they get it knocked down and they go back and act the same way, which, is not I don't think that's the signal the city wants to send. So I don't know if this is Jake division or whatever, but if people break the law, then they should have to pay for it, because this is getting out of control. I'm telling you, we getting calls. I get calls late at night. A neighbor don't want to move their car off from the driveway, and then the other neighbor is afraid. You don't want it to escalate. That's my concern now.
Council President, you're 100% right, and we share your frustration in that, but that's not even Jake. That's above him at the municipal
Right.
judge level. And we have met with them. and express this, but they are,
No, we met with them
I know. you
during this
did.
budget hearing, because that's a big concern now. They have to, create, this challenge that they started. They gonna have to create this, because it's just too much. It's not safe.
And
It's not.
also to Councilman Bogiano's point about construction, we do have problems with on weekends where construction sites haven't closed up safely. And
Mhm.
then so somebody will call the police, but then it's not clear if an action was taken, if a summons was written, if they talked to them about it. So I think maybe having that conversation to see what would be the best course of action if we don't have inspectors and they're calling the police and then they're allowed to have like a fence that isn't secured properly, heaven forbid some little kid gets in there and gets seriously hurt.
Again, I share your frustration, but the reason the police do that is because we're the only ones out there.
Mhm.
My officers are not construction officials like Ray
Correct.
Myers is, who you mentioned, he doesn't work for me. He works for a completely different thing. I mean, that might be a conversation to have with them, that they should have people working on the weekend.
Correct.
Because around the country, we're starting to say, why are the police doing all this? Why are they
Right.
involved in all?
Oh,
Why are
everything.
armed agents of the state
They should-
doing this instead of protecting? So, but we will do it because we are the only ones out there. So if there's a safety issue or something,
Mhm.
we will respond. But again, I think that's a bigger conversation of why all of this is seemingly just like, well, we can all work Monday to Friday and the police will do, the police will do it on the weekend. It's asking a lot to ask our officers to be experts in criminal law, de-escalation, and now let's add construction codes, from the state of New Jersey to it.
No, Director, all we're asking is that they shut them down. Like when they're doing, people in this city are being just, what's going on Monday through Friday with the noise, the construction, starting at 7 o'clock, waking everybody up, the traffic and everything. And all we're asking is that when they show up at the scene, they close the place down, like the Pavonia and Summit or the Kirshner buildings. You're not allowed to work on Saturdays. You're not allowed to disturb the people in the neighborhood Saturday and Sunday and on holidays. And that's all we're asking. We're not asking them to do anything, just close them down.
I'm with you, councilperson, and if they don't have the correct permits or whatever, you're 100% right. They should be shut down.
Questions? I think that's all you guys depart.
Wait, traffic?
Traffic. Oh, I forgot traffic.
Favorite.
Don't forget traffic.
Oh, and that's important. Here we go, traffic.
Subject.
Yeah, before we start, Chestnut and Newark this morning, took me
I got it.
40 minutes to go from there to City Hall because Columbus Drive is screwed up with the bike lanes. Trucks parked in the lanes. You have to drive on the other side of the street. There's no enforcement because we don't have a traffic division in the Jersey City Police Department. And double parking, they go through Journal Square, which is the county basically, but Jersey City handles it. It's a shame what's going on. And the only enforcement with the parking authority seems to be downtown. There's no enforcement up in Journal Square, basically.
Okay, start the traffic.
So before you start with traffic, I just wanted to let you guys know, I confirmed in my office, police chief is direct appointment from the mayor. The council does not have any approval.
Sean,
Thank you. It's a direct
it's a
appointment.
direct appointment. We don't have to vote.
No advice and consent from the council.
None needed, yeah.
You changing?
Good luck.
We
If you-
make ordinance?
If you look to do that, you would have to change the
Come on, geez, okay.
chapter 3, rules of administration.
Write that one down.
Just really quick, just to go through, if we can go to page 7, it's just more of the operating items. So when it comes to parking, I know we
Which page
just,
are we? Sorry.
you can hear me?
Uh,
7
7.
is the operation. The budget, we introduced it to them. 7. So of course, they have the contractual is the uniform allowance that they get. That's their boots, they regular costs from there. They had a line item, which was line item 201 for office supplies. Yes, it was a request for the $5,000. You good? Okay. put a $5,000 on there. Line item 210, I no longer need for 210 because Director Kears took meters and what's name out. So that $10,000 is not necessary anymore. Uniforms, we have to keep the people in uniforms. The crossing guards are contractual. Can't get around that. You got to give them the coach. You got to keep parking enforcement with their uniforms, as well as when new hires come, we are responsible for there. So that's why the uniform cost for that is the cost that it is. When we have to do the printing and advertisement for traffic, those signs that go up are not cheap. And so when people keep tearing them down and we got to replace them with when they have wrong dates and things on there, training, it was more so where we've been doing a lot of cross training with the traffic enforcement and having Travis Ragland and all of them, not just teaching with driving, but cross training to help with some of the crossing guards. It helps when we had all these big events, especially when we had the marathon, like when Billy and them had the fire up there in the Greenville area. It really helped that they were cross-trained already because we was able to use the traffic enforcement to do that. Yes, so we do all kinds of training that traffic enforcement that we try to give police. We want them to be able to stand. So it helps that we didn't have to tie up so many police officers to close off roads. We was able to use the traffic enforcers because Travis had all of them cross-trained and we did that part of it in-house. We want to stay on the top of helping them to be better supervisors because it's just like the council, you know, you guys as councilmen are saying, when someone goes to the scene, you want somebody to know what they're talking about. You want a supervisor that knows that they're aware of it. So I think constant training should always happen for them. Then we have for office equipment, they need new radios. Radios are so outdated. It's no coming back from, and not all of them have radios, so they got to trade out. So they're outdated with that. And the other request is vehicles, because you know the scooters, they no longer make the parts, and it was one person, one mechanic that was working on them. So now we're down to almost no vehicles that you got to swap out. What helps is the public safety building opened sooner than it should have.
Okay.
So we was able to move some of the traffic enforcement. So Southwest is in the Southwest. Northeast is still in Central Avenue until we can move the whole board, but that's through the state. So you do have enforcement that stays in that area. And in this section, they're getting to calls more. We're trying to do a little bit better with the sweepers, of course, because we're short staffed, but I do have to say thank you to you guys because we did get, I think it was Colin gave us 3 or 4 employees that we did just get from traffic. So that does help because we was noticing we took some people off of midnights because it wasn't a lot of transactions once we look at the watch call. So we're trying to make that part of it work for us. So more so of, and it's just my suggestion and I hope not out of line for it. A lot of this stuff that we have going because they're under police, because the city is trying to save money, and I'm not saying all of it. I'm not saying all of it. Let me say that part. Some of this stuff can just, because we're in, and it's under the umbrella of police, that if I can sit down with budget and some of these numbers, give them to me, and then I can just function for traffic underneath police because it's under that one umbrella. Financially, because most of that, or most of our office supplies, when we just had to do the uniforms, all of that came from us.
Like traffic not to be separate. We'd like it to just be a part of the police because it essentially is now. It's under the director of police. And by next year, that should be just one less thing we have to do. They'll come under here.
The council would just need to amend the municipal code because right now it currently exists as its own division. So we have to fund
Do you want to do that this year or?
Funded both.
traffic and parking is a division under, I think it's chapter 3 of the municipal code, right?
Law department first, then me.
So if
Goes
we
under.
want to fund the traffic and parking operations under police, we would need an ordinance amending the code to reflect that, to make it either a bureau or just eliminate it completely. But until that's done, we have to budget for each division that exists in our
Gotcha.
code. And
Okay.
in theory, you could do it this year, but I mean, time is.
Already budgeted.
I think we're better off just
Okay.
next year.
Next year.
Would we still get a presentation? Because
I'm sorry.
I said, would we still get a presentation?
You definitely will. I just feel as if, because being honest, and I know it's not easy for budget to be able to try to go from one line. I know I probably make them all the way crazy, but I just feel like a lot of this stuff, because it's all under police, I'm funding it. And if I just had a little more, it's easier to put it there and they can save some of that.
But let me ask you something, when it comes to your parking enforcement officers, on that, now, okay, you put them under police. Will they have the ability, because I know sometimes I see them writing, tickets, people who,
They have
you know, like cross, driveways and things like that.
Mhm.
Do they have the power and authority to call a tow officer to get it towed?
So they can impound. So what we did over at police, because they're under police, we always have a sergeant,
Uh-huh.
lieutenant, or someone that's available that be able, so if someone was to make it difficult for them, so they can do an impound, but if it gets too crazy, the sergeant responds to the scene and they're able to do it. So it's a lot of them that Travis Ragland, that he's certified through the state, is cross-training them on so
Mhm.
that different ones can do it. As long as, that's why it's very important that background checks and stuff happen, so that a lot of stuff we're trying to get for them is trained through the state. So
Right.
that, like, you know, the councilman is saying, you won't tie up so many police officers
Correct.
for stuff, because
Right.
the traffic people have been helping us so much now. And it's a cheaper rate for us
Right.
to be able to do it with using them there. So we thank you for the 4 people we did get, but we're able to do a whole lot more if the states keep allowing us to train them, to get close quotes from it.
Because I wanted to know, do they have the authority to do it? Because,
It's a cheaper rate, but there's a lot, they're all good people. We have all Jersey City residents are our traffic, our traffic enforcers. Director Moody has created a career path where you can start as a school crossing guard, make your way to, get a better job, sometimes get promoted to supervisor.
Right.
Some of them even get interested and take the police test. So that's why we like it being a part and being more integrated. It's also safer for them to be associated with the police department, to have police sergeants that can respond if somebody's giving them a problem instead of just a supervisor. That's safer for them, which is important to us.
I want to say, it's been a complete 180 since the last time we met. I've seen it in the street. I've seen the progress between Lieutenant Ragland, Lieutenant Justin, and Lieutenant Goodman. They have done an incredible job, as well as yourself. Culture has changed. The finances have improved. We're finally in the black, and it's a good thing. And in addition, I believe you put the permitting online, and there's a automatic license plate reader now. There's a lot of good technological progress that's happened that I've seen in like college universities. So I just want to commend you,
you.
in terms of all the progress you've made.
Thank you.
On to my question, though.
Go for it.
So there was a question regarding the signage and whose responsibility is to remove the no parking signs. Because as of right now, people just post up the no parking and then they leave it there. I was wondering if it's possible for you guys to mandate a credit card on file. So if they don't remove it, then they will be charged for the removal after the date, which
Okay, no, I definitely can talk to Tina and Travis, and because we meet regularly on Mondays to see as a team how we make this better. And with our one-stop shop, one issue did come up as far as the permits, because the signage, once people put signage up and they don't want it no more, they just tear it down. It's unfair to the sweepers, because that's all under traffic as well. So we did just touch that maybe about 2 weeks ago of, is it a way in which we can make sure where the signs was put up at? Can we just go and make sure that those signs are down once the event is over? So we are touching on that.
Hey, Councilman, I like your idea. I'm just sitting here thinking about it, that maybe we charge the fee like they didn't, and kind of like a hotel. We just don't take it if they actually do what they're supposed to do. So
yeah,
let me talk to legal and see if we can do that, because that might be a great way to get compliance.
absolutely. I know Tina's also done an incredible job and she's had her responsibilities expanded greatly. Will she be receiving a step up in title or pay to commensurate with her additional duties?
So I think I can pass it down there to Kyle.
Everything is frozen.
Look.
Finance over
You
there.
can
They
go on
like-
over there and pass that one to
Finance
Kyle.
space, I see it. They went.
We gotta do something. I mean, they totally
2024
revamped.
is right around the corner, and we are committing after this budget cycle to start effective
Right.
immediately. So we're in line with like, and if you're planning and catching up with some of the other things, so everything's heard and received as to where we started in December to where we are in kind of sort of actuals, we're in June, right? So I think those are the different perspectives and landscapes. And I would say in these last 6 months, we've been able to really hold the line, organize things in a fashion that's much transparency than greater before.
So I have a question again, that, you know, to echo the councilman's sentiments about what's been happening in parking. It's been very positive. But I see here for line 310 for maintenance and repair, it's zeroed out, and the comment is that equipment maintenance park mobile,
When you at?
310.
310.
Yes.
Okay. So what happened is, glad you brought it up. They budget took that line item from us last year and they didn't give us money for that. But to maintain it, it's just been like the contract, like you can pay that one as well under contractual services, but they
Oh.
took that line item from us. Park Mobile is down up and the cost is up and giving us.
Okay, just because I also, and again, we can speak offline outside of here
Yep.
because there are no stickers on West Side Avenue. So I'm imagining people are plugging quarters into meters, and I just want to make sure that we're capturing as much revenue and turning the spots over, which is
Yep.
helpful for our businesses.
Yep.
So if we can talk separately.
Definitely. So we can see how we can help that.
Yep.
You know.
I know too, when we brought in Park Mobile, it was supposed to be
Help us.
able to help us with a whole series
Right.
of things, including permits and things like that. And I know that there was talk about changing that, keeping it, you know, if we've got an in-house system, which they know that they're working on, I think that that's great if that saves us money. But I just wanted, like I said, there's,
Yep,
and I'm receiving now complaints from businesses
Nope,
about this.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Councilman Solomon?
Yeah, a couple of things. One is, every year I think we budget for more parking enforcement officers, and then every year at the end of the year, we move that money somewhere else because they don't get fully hired to replace at least the ones who leave during the year. And it is Councilman Bojana said there's enforcement downtown. There is occasionally enforcement, but there certainly isn't enough enforcement given I think the types of things, and obviously people parking, use the path, not using the residential permits, issues of people in loading zones that shouldn't be there, which then forces trucks to park in the lane, all these things. And so, I wanted to ask, what updates you can provide us on hiring of officers and, what we might be do differently this year to make sure that we, for at least what's budgeted, every single position is filled.
So I'm gonna pass that back on over the budget, but in order for us to have, we have to have the personnel. One of our goals are, because the weather is changing, it helps when you have some of the parking enforcement walking, because you can get a lot more out of that. And with us having less vehicles not getting repaired, because the parts are not there, we're definitely the new bodies that we get, trying to get them into walking so that we can try to help prevent that and not be stuck because we don't have it's like being proactive about it. But if we can get more employees, and that part of it comes from HR and finances to be able to.
There's at least a couple of folks budgeted. I think it's 4 positions. I know you requested more, but I think there's 4 positions.
It was the 4.
And are those 4 in the process of being filled, or where do we stand with at least
No,
4?
no.
At least the 4 that are budgeted?
The 4 that was budgeted, they
Yeah.
started. 2 of them, I think 2 or 3 of them started maybe about a month or so ago, because they was in training. And we have those guys are in training right now.
So at the time of introduction, there was 7 vacancies for parking enforcement officers and 1 vacancy for traffic guard supervisor. If there's been any hiring since then, we'll update that budget document.
When you say vacancies, are those positions that are just, does that include new hires or just filling?
This year, we funded what was funded last year. So the people that were in the budget in 2022. And there's a couple new hires. We funded 3 new hires this year.
Okay. I'm always open to if my colleagues, agree to fund more positions here. Ultimately, it does generate revenue for the city. So from a budgetary perspective, in the long run, it really helps us. But I think we all see that there's not enforcement in key places across the city. So, I think it's a kind of collective thing, but just making sure, if you guys are filling those positions, it'd be great for us to know so then we can change and push. The other question I just had was, a couple of years ago, we had approved a contract to enable the purchase of visitors passes in residential zones via Park Mobile. And I wondered if that was on your radar and if that was something you guys were working on.
I know when we met with Tina, I want to say like a month,
Right.
that was one of the things that came up, but I can get back to you on there on the status of
Sure.
where we're at,
Yeah, I think that'd be great. It just,
definitely.
instead of having to go up to Central Avenue at, during the workday. Love Central Avenue, but, people have, yeah, I know that's right.
Hey, Central Avenue
Jobs,
is great.
people are working during the day. It'd be great to get that visitor pass online as opposed to in person.
I'll definitely get back to you on
Yeah, great.
that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. Any more questions? I just wanted on the record, I know nobody's from the BA office, the mayor's office. I know based on, we are meeting with different departments and the question always come back when it comes to hiring is HR. I don't know what the problem is. I really don't know what the problem is. But I think going forward, can HR present to us a quarterly report on who was hired and from what division? And the reason why I'm asking for this, because then we can go and call that division to see if this is the request that they put in. Because it seemed like even when you look at our budget, there's always, and you guys always put money aside for hires. But then sometime when each department comes back, they have not hired that person for whatever reason. They keep saying, well, HR, they had to do this or they had to do that. And I gave them, just like with Jake, I don't know if he ever got his prosecutor. I don't know. And this prosecutor thing been going on for a whole year. That's my point. And so when I asked him, he said he put it in. When you ask HR, they said he didn't put it in. So there is a breakdown somewhere.
So Council President, what I can do is I'll take this message back to the HR director. But additionally, in part of our quarterly finance meetings that we're having, I think we discussed after budget hearings, our next meeting with you would be in August. So we can give you like a snapshot review. So we just don't add additional meetings to meetings and we just put that kind of sort of like, finance and human resources, like our biggest cost in finance is
Right.
salaries, imagining that process and making that interconnectivity and being joint in several. So we'll add it as an agenda item in our August meeting.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I just want to say something. While we're sitting here, I get an email. Summit in Pavonia was closed today. No permits, and they closed the sidewalk also. Off-duty cop allowed at all. The cops have to be trained that people cannot close sidewalks, cannot close streets. These contractors do what they want, and nobody enforces the law. All I know is it's election day, and gotta go on. But this is what's wrong. And Billy, you know what I'm talking about, Billy. So you get disgusted after a while with the traffic. And Yusuf, I don't know how you can say about traffic. Just drive down.
I was on Summit Avenue this
around
morning.
The city, it's horrible. There's no traffic enforcement whatsoever.
I literally drove down over there, so
All righty.
motion to adjourn.
Okay, I have a motion to adjourn at 11:56 a.m. by Councilperson Saleh. May I have a second? Second by Council President Waterman. On the motion to adjourn at 11:56 a.m., all council members present by acclamation, please say aye. We are out of here at 11:56 a.m. Thank you so much, everybody in attendance and everybody watching at home. Remember, teamwork makes the dream work. And Director Shea, don't forget my police officer for tonight. Thank you. Have a good one.